Hey y'all! Wow, my Declutter, Dream, and Depart We're Moving to France channel already has 100 subscribers in just a little over a month and almost 2,000 views. That just blows my mind. It just makes me go, "Pah." Thank you all so much for following along as we share this big adventure. Of course, I've also had my first trolls, which I guess means I've officially made it on YouTube, right? Anyway, I've had some really great questions and comments from you all in the comment sections of my videos, so today I would kind of like to address those. Also, I want to give you a sneak peek of what's coming up soon. So let's dive in. So the first question I want to answer is the one that appears that all of our family and friends and people on YouTube are asking. When are we moving? The answer, I'm afraid, is a little more fluid than I would like, and that maybe you would like to hear. Our big hope is to be in France by spring 2026. I'm talking March spring, but I'm not sure it's going to happen quite that soon. I was hoping for January, but as usual, and as you all know, decluttering, DIYing, cleaning things up, picking things up, and Murphy's Law making things go wrong means that our timeline is always going to be pushed as far as it can get pushed so we can get finished. Plus, while we're doing all the decluttering and fixing up and all the things, the DIY, we're still working. So, because we still got to make money. So, our hope is to have this house listed in October. That's going to be pushing it because we're at the tail end of August right now. So, that's only a little over a month away. And we've still got a lot to do. So, my fear is that we may not be able to list the house until early spring. I don't like that idea, because I mean, people will buy in the winter now, especially here in North Carolina. It's not like we're getting 2 feet of snow. Listing the house is dependent on all of these chores we have to get done, including having the oak floors redone. That's going to be something we're going to have to hire out. Finishing the front walk with some soil and some nice plants for curb appeal. Painting the entire inside walls and outside of the house. Replacing the carpet in my studio because it's full of paint. And doing a lot more outside work as well, which includes tearing down a very large back deck that was rotting before we ever even bought the house. Little did we know, it was untreated wood that it was built with. But we're gonna have to tear that whole thing down and then grade what's under it in order to make sure the yard is sloped properly. That's a lot. I'm exhausted just thinking about it. As soon as we get the house on the market, we're probably gonna try to make ourselves scarce, and we have to take our animals with us because we don't want to leave them here alone with strangers coming into the house. That wouldn't be fair for the strangers or for us. So when the house closes, that's when we will immediately get our appointments and apply for our visas. We will probably either still be staying with family or we'll get an Airbnb or a holiday home somewhere nearby. When we get our visas, or when we go apply for our visas, that's when we'll choose our moving date, because they'll ask. And once you get your visa, you have 90 days. So you have to choose within that 90-day window when you're going to go over. That doesn't mean you have to be there on that day. There are problems sometimes, like a delayed flight, or you didn't get your USDA thing in time, so you have to change a flight. That's for the pets. We'll talk about that in another video. Those kind of things are going to happen. If on the off chance one of us gets a job offer in France and needs to go sooner, the other one will have to do all the wrapping up and the finishing up, and then that person can come back when we're all ready to go. Guaranteed, it would be my husband that gets the job offer, and I can't haul 3 pets by myself with luggage across the ocean. However, we're hoping and pretty sure that we'll be going together. I don't want to spend another summer here in the US. Not only am I just done with the heat, and I know France has had a heat wave as well, just didn't last as long as our heat waves tend to last. My bigger concern, though, is that the housing market's going to change. I'm hoping that it'll change in our favor, but we don't know that. The economy here in the US is kind of up in the air right now. And that's another thing. I don't want to delay our departure for fear that the US dollar is going to decrease in value more than it already has. A year ago, the US dollar and the euro were almost the same. The euro was maybe like worth 4 cents more, I think. Now, not so much. The dollar has lost value against the euro, so our dollars transferring and translating into euros will be less than they would have been before. And if the dollar devalues even more between now and when we move, that could be a problem. One question that we got that I thought was kind of funny, especially because it was in kind of this weird derogatory way it was asked. It was not asked in the comments on my videos. It was in another group that I'm in. And it was, well, have you even ever been to France? And my answer is yes. Yes, we have. We traveled when we went, we probably spent about 8 days in France. We took a trip and used a Eurail pass, that's the European rail, to take the train from France, from Paris to another small town in the Alps into Italy, and then back up onto the other side of France through Nice and Marseille before we went back to Paris. So we spent a few days in Paris, loved it. However, it rained the whole time, but that wasn't the biggest issue. The biggest issue was that I'm just not a city person. I like small cities. I love the urban environment. I love the energy of places, but outside of being able to see the wonderful museums and the art, and the streets were gorgeous and everything we saw was lovely, and people were very nice too, by the way, we both felt kind of claustrophobic. We learned something about ourselves, and that was we want to visit the big city, see the big city attractions, and then get the heck out and go to smaller cities and smaller towns where we can actually see how life looks in another country. After we left Paris, we took the train, and they were having a railroad strike at the time. So it was much more complicated than we expected to be able to go from place to place, because a lot of the trains were canceled. A lot of the trips were canceled. So we found a way. We went to, I think it was the Gare du Nord in Paris, in the station, and a lady was able to find us a train ticket on the TGV to go to Annecy, which is a small town in the Alps. It's beautiful. I will do a video soon about our trip and show you some video clips and pictures, because it was just flat out gorgeous. So we went to Annecy and spent a couple of days. I would have loved to have spent more time there, but we had reservations at another Airbnb in Florence. That was delayed for a day because of the rail strike. We had to literally get on a bus out of Annecy to get to a border town in France so we could catch a train to go into Italy. And then we went back up into France on the other side. So we went into Nice and spent a night there. We were supposed to take a sleeper train back to Paris from Nice. However, that was canceled because of the rail strike. So we actually had to go on and spend another afternoon and evening and overnight in Marseille and catch a morning train out of Marseille back into Charles de Gaulle Airport. That was a whole nightmare of a trip back to Paris. And we decided next time we fly, maybe we won't be flying into Paris. Because from what I understand, the Nice airport is not quite as full of insanity as it was trying to get the metro to get to the airport. It was scary. But if we had it to do over again, we'd have probably just paid for a cab to get us back to the airport instead of standing in the giant crowds of people being shoved into trains and being shoved up against each other because there weren't enough trains for the amount of people. But that's just one of those things, if you're planning on moving to France, by the way, that they're going to go on strike for stuff, because they are an independently minded group of people and they are not going to have their rights suppressed. So they will go on strike, and often. You just got to plan your trips around their strikes. Usually they'll let people know in advance when they're going to go on strike. We didn't know that, or that would have been nice to know. But we were tourists then. We'll be residents when we go this time. So our evening in Marseille was fun. We really enjoyed it. I'll talk about that again later too, because that had a fun story attached to it. Fun, not fun, but it's interesting. So yes, we have been to France. However, we don't intend to live in any of the places that we visited. Annecy was high on the list, but it's also pretty expensive. It's an alpine place where all the French people go in the wintertime on vacation, or even in the summertime on vacation, because it's beautiful and it's close. We also don't want to grow older living in a place that gets snow and ice because, you know, broken hips are not fun. We have been looking around at various places. We looked a lot at southwest France. We looked at the Dordogne area. We looked at the Lot area underneath it, and Toulouse, and my fairy tale city, Carcassonne, France, is in southwest France. We also looked at the northern part of France, especially Lille, which and we looked at Normandy and Brittany as well. But Lille is like the hub of all the things. The train goes from there to everywhere very quickly. So that was a draw, but I realized that Lille gets more rain than Seattle. And if I never wanted to live in Seattle because too much gray skies and Kristen has a SAD, so we decided to go further south, especially southwards from Paris down. And we've looked at Lyon, which is a little pricey, though if my husband gets a job in or around Lyon that he has to go into an office or a workplace, then we'll live there, you know. Oh darn, it'll be more expensive, but it'll still be France, and Lyon is beautiful. We've looked at a small, older industrial town called Saint-Étienne, which is really interesting. I really like it. It's very artsy. Then we've looked at Avignon, which also, it's down further in the Provence area. It's amazing. It's beautiful, and it costs probably a third or 2/3 of what Lyon would cost us. I'm one of those people I've discovered. There's a woman named Patricia Brooks that does videos as well, and she's also a coach for women who want to solo move out of their country and into somewhere in Europe. But she said something that struck me. As an artist, I need to have beauty around me. I need to be able to look around me and see beautiful things. Now I could do that here in North Carolina. There's beauty everywhere. There are beautiful trees and mountains and beaches, and North Carolina pretty much has everything. It's a very long state. So there's a lot of beauty here. The problem is we can't afford to enjoy a lot of beauty here because everything is so expensive. It's expensive to own a car. It's expensive. I know gas is twice as much in France, but we won't have a car in France, so we won't need to worry so much about that. It's just expensive. Our dollar will stretch, even with the dollar to euro transition, our money will stretch further over there and give us the ability to do more and to explore more. So I will be taking you on a few armchair explorations of some of the places that we've been looking at and exploring, just to see what you think. I'll also be adding statistics and things I've learned, like the cost of living there. I might even do some fun things like, how much is a baguette in this particular place? Apparently, from what I understand, Paris has the lowest cost food. I guess because it's readily available. You can get a baguette for $1, a good one. Okay, next question. Why France? What makes France better than a multitude of other choices all over the world? And people asked, what other countries did you check out? So yes, those questions were all from one person. Several people. But they really want to know how we came to France as our choice of where we want to be, our top choice, our number one. I'll let you know a lot of the other countries that we looked at on our discovery process, but I also have to admit that Europe has always been on my list as where I want to go, and that has to do with one major thing, and that is public transportation. The transportation in Europe is second to none, especially in France. All over Europe, you can catch a train to anywhere. You can take a bus to anywhere. There are trams, even in small cities, and bus lines, and so much public transportation that we were able to figure out that we wouldn't have to have a car at all, because we don't want to live in the country. We don't want to go into the Dordogne and buy that, or the Charente, or wherever. They're all beautiful places, but we don't want a farm. We don't want a country house. We don't want to have to drive everywhere to get groceries or to do anything like that. We want to live in a place where we can walk out the door and be in it, be in the community, be able to walk a couple blocks and get groceries at a market or store, to be able to walk to an antique market or a thrift store. all of those things, and to be able to walk to neighborhood places where people meet and greet, to have our community right there outside our door. That's where we want to be. I know that I dreamed about having my own little cottage in France, but the cottage is going to need to be at the edge of the suburbs of a larger place where we can walk or grab a tram, because otherwise I'll feel too isolated. I know I will. So while I don't want the congestion and crowds of Paris, I'm okay with less crowded cities and smaller cities that are still cities that offer all of those things. Plus, I love trains. I love them. I think they're amazing. I love being able to read a book while we're traveling, or just look out the window at all of the scenery going by, or get up and walk into another car. Some of the trains even have dining cars where you can buy a sandwich or a drink. We did look at Mexico, Canada, South America, Central America, Southeast Asia. All of those places had pluses. All of those places had pluses, but Europe has the public transportation. And that's what really, Europe has always been my list, though. It's always been where I wanted to be. I want to be someplace with history that has really good infrastructure and public transportation. Plus, France is one of those countries that is battling climate change by creating more green spaces, by doing some other things that are helping people. And they're putting in electric train systems that for the places that don't already have them and haven't had them for 10 years. It's just a much more equipped place for us to be in Europe. Once we narrowed down where we wanted to be, we knew we wanted to be in Europe, then we started looking at the finer things. How easy or hard was it to get a visa? I know that a lot of people recommend Spain and Portugal as places where it's easier to get a visa to go live. However, it's been getting a little more difficult in both places. And also, what really settled us on not really wanting to live there is that it's a very arid kind of climate. I know they've had problems with flooding and with stuff like that before too, but it just doesn't feel green enough for me, I suppose. There is a little stretch of northern Spain that has that they call the green part of Spain. It's becoming more difficult to emigrate there, and the landscape just wasn't exactly what we were looking for. That's all. While I know that Portugal and Spain have a reputation for having very friendly residents and welcoming people, plus we're really not beach people or super hot weather people. And we don't want to be isolated in mountain towns unless it's a city that has, again, great public transportation. Living here in North Carolina, I have realized that I miss living in a place that has 4 seasons. I don't miss ice storms from Missouri, my home. I don't miss the cold and the gray of the winters there. North Carolina has much milder winters, and they're getting more mild as our climate is getting warmer. It's beautiful, but I'm tired of being hot. I'm tired of walking out my door and feeling like I have been wrapped around with a warm, wet, soggy blanket. I'll tell you why I've taken my absolute dream fairy tale town off the list for that reason. And it makes me sad, but I think the hot would be a little much for me. Then we looked at the UK and found out that they're working through a lot of challenges themselves right now. Number one, they have a housing shortage. We looked at Ireland too, which is a little less so, and Scotland, because Ireland and Scotland are where my ancestors come from, and maybe my husband's too. I don't know. There are housing shortages in those kinds of places, so it's more difficult to go, and it's more difficult. I'm too far removed from my Irish and Scottish relatives to make that a way into getting dual citizenship. Also, the cost of living in the UK is really high. The Netherlands was next. It's got some great cities and a really good treaty with the United States on people moving back and forth, on being able to get visas and work there. The downside, again, is the cost of living. It's still pretty high cost of living. And let's face it, it's still got that rainy, windy weather that I'm not sure I would enjoy. Now, sure, I could hop a train and go south for a few hours, or for a few days, and get some sun, but I'd really rather not fight the weather as much. It is still on the backup list for us, though, because of its high quality of life, because of its good jobs, its clean structure, and its safety. If my husband happens to be offered a job in the Netherlands, would he have to turn it down because I'd be whiny about it? No. because I would still be overjoyed just to be in Europe. And the Netherlands is beautiful and green. Long story short, too late. I studied every single country in Europe to see what would be the most suitable to us, the most suited to our nature, and the easiest to get in. And as I learned from another couple, the Europats, we crossed Italy off the list because they've changed their immigration to become almost impossible. And their bureaucracy, from what I understand, is far worse than France's. And their bureaucracy is nothing to shake a stick at, because it's still pretty rough sometimes once you're there. We also studied countries in Eastern Europe. Albania is on our short list, and it is also a country that if we were unable to get into the other 3 countries ahead of it, it's number 4. It's low cost, it's coming up with their transportation, and their ability to move forward is so good. The people there are very friendly, it's very low cost of living, and it's right across from Italy on the sea. So you still have seaside towns, you still have these beautiful mountains, and you can live in Albania for a year just on your passport, on your US passport. Something to remember for anybody in the US that wants to get somewhere low cost quickly. You don't need to apply for a visa, and you can apply for a visa in Albania inside the country. In France, we have to apply in our country of citizenship, which is the United States. We cannot apply for a visa in France once we're there. We have to do it first. France's visa process is not as bad as we thought. Just keep lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of documents and paperwork. It has quite a lower cost of living than we have here in the United States. Cost of food's lower. Cost of housing is lower. Rent is much lower. It's regulated by the government. It's hard for people from other countries to find a place to rent in France because landlords don't want to rent to someone who might ditch out on them. We can find a service to help us find a nice place to rent. So eventually France became the goal, but I have to admit that France has always, since I was a kid, been my goal. I needed to do the research first. I wasn't going to just say, no, France is it. That's where we need to go. Both of us came to that conclusion and realization together, and both of us have decided that France is the place we want to be. Next question. If our visas are rejected, do we have a backup? Well, hopefully they won't be. And if they are, hopefully we can reapply and get it to go through the next time. Usually they're rejected because you're missing some sort of piece of paperwork, or because some T isn't crossed or some I isn't dotted. So usually it's a matter of gathering the paperwork again and finding out why it was rejected so that you can fix it. But we do have backups just in case for some reason we are completely rejected forever and ever from France. Our short list, as I've said, Albania is on the list, but it's not number 1. Our short list is number 1 country, France. If we end up not being able to go to France for some reason, the Netherlands is number 2. If the Netherlands doesn't work out, then we'll try again for Ireland. Then on number 4 on the list, our 4th one will be Albania, because as I said, Albania is low cost of living and cheap, and it's still only 6 hours ahead on the timeline from us, so it's not that far. That's our number 4. Canada would probably be our number 5, somewhere in Quebec or Nova Scotia area, because we have some friends that are looking into going there as well, so it might not be as difficult. But it just depends, because it's harder to get a visa in Canada unless you have a professional job that they're looking for, professional work that they're looking for, or some other means of support. So on to the question we've been asked the most, and which seems to have been the most controversial. And I understand it, because French people are really getting tired of English-speaking people moving there and then refusing to learn the language. And it's changing their laws. Yes, to all of you who worry that we're just going to come over and be tourists forever and ever and not assimilate and not learn the language, we will be, and we are. We are learning French. It's not easy, but we are both putting our heads down and learning, and we expect that by the time we move, we will be solidly in an A2 level of French. I'll explain the levels to you if you're interested. Just comment below if you're interested in a future video on learning about what the levels are. France, as of 2026, has changed their visa requirements to you have to be at an A2 level to get a long-term visa in France. Now, this does not mean that they will throw you out of the country once you take the test. Yes, there's a test, and I think you have to take it within 3 months of arriving in France. If you do not pass the test at an A2 level, they're not going to throw you out, but they will require you to take classes, usually with Alliance Française. Most cities have, and you take intensive courses until you're at the level you need to be. You have to reapply every year for several years for your visa, and I think they're now starting to back up your time limit for learning an A2 level of French. I think is 3 years, but I'm not sure about that, so don't quote me. I feel like I just saw a news report that said that at some point. France 24, interesting station, by the way. That there's a caveat to that language learning. If you are 65 or over, they don't require that, because they understand that the older we get, the more difficult it is to learn a language. I would encourage anybody retiring over there that are 65 or older to still learn as much as you can of French, because that helps you become part of the community and helps you get in there. Don't just move in and hang out with a bunch of people that are English speaking. What's the point of going at all if you're not going to learn about the culture and dive right in? But that is a problem in France and other countries too, is that there have been a lot of people who do not speak French, especially British and Americans, and especially British. Not insulting, but a lot of the French people are tired of groups of English-speaking people moving to France, clustering up together, refusing to learn French, and turning their little patch of France into a duplicate of where they came from. You know, all the shops being anglicized, I guess. So while they're fine with the occasional pub, there's nothing wrong with that, but a lot of people are refusing to learn French. They're moving in and starting communities and then expecting the French to modify to their culture rather than modifying themselves to French culture. So this is one of the reasons why the government itself is making these changes. They're saying you can't come here anymore and not learn our culture and just take over with your culture. You have to learn our language and learn how to blend in with us. We want you here. We like you. We enjoy having people come over. We're curious about you. We want to know you. No, we don't hate you because of who your leader is right now. But you need to come with the expectation that you're going to be joining in with the French culture and the French language and learning and becoming fluent. My entrepreneurial visa that I'm applying for will specifically be designed to bring people into particular areas to feed into the economy of France. For example, I'll be hosting creative retreats, so that will put money into the pockets of the boutique hotels that we'll be selecting for these retreats. It will be helping local restaurants, local artisans, local vineyards, all of those kinds of things feed into the economy of France. We are coming to be contributing members of society. We're coming to be putting our money into the economy of wherever we end up being, and being part of the community in all those ways that we can. And also, their medical research and technology and education is soaring right now. They are leaders in medical research and medical education, while here our researchers are being stripped of their funding. Cancer research is being stripped of its funding. All of these things are being taken away. So I'm for going to a place that is actually rising instead of going back to the Dark Ages. So as they say here in the South, it might not be perfect, but it's a damn sight better than it is here. On an added note, as her handle is Sue the French Texpat. I guess she's from Texas. Her dog recently had, go check out her video if you haven't seen her videos yet. She just recently arrived in France, and her dog injured her ACL, and she found after appointments that her dog is going to have surgery. And it's by the time all of the visits and the follow-up and the medications and the surgery and all of these things are done, it's going to run her under $3,000, but close to $3,000, maybe euros. I don't remember what she said. However, I worked in a veterinary hospital here. It was 2012, mind you. This was a while back. And that kind of injury with surgery, with follow-up, would have wound up being close to $10,000 or more dollars. So even veterinary care is lower cost in France. That's it for questions you've asked. So my last questions are for you, my friends and my viewers. I'm going to be doing still videos of our decluttering and DIYing and all of that stuff as we fix up our house to sell so we can move. But I want to intermingle that with discussions of our explorations of France and the parts surrounding. I will start with videos and pictures from our former explorations when we did go to France. I might even share some of the Italy things with you as we go along. And then I'll be doing some armchair exploring, I suppose. What would you like to see? What would you like to know? If you were wanting to learn about a particular city or region in France, what would you want to learn about it? What are the things you'd be most interested in learning? I am super interested in history. I've always been a history buff, so I might even do a little deep dive into the history of a particular area. Once I have more subscribers, I might start doing some lives where you're in the chat live and we can talk back and forth to one another. So tell me what you think would be interesting about that and what days might be more interesting to you. I'm currently putting out videos on Wednesdays and on Saturday afternoon. Tell me if you'd be interested in lives once I gain more subscribers, or even now I have 100+ subscribers, so that's enough for a chat. So answer me those questions down in the comments. I'll pin those questions in the comments so you can remember and don't have to scroll back in the video. What did she ask me to say? Please don't forget to hit that thumbs up button and subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet. I think it's going to be really fun as we go through this process and people can actually see us going through the process of decluttering our house, getting it painted, getting it fixed up and ready to sell, and then the visa process, anything we're struggling with, anything that's easier than we thought, all of that kind of stuff. So I'm going to continue to be doing that, as well as some armchair explorations of the different places that I've deep dived into researching. Europats, by the way, do a really good job of breaking down costs. So check out their channel. They are the Europats. Number one, they amuse the hell out of me. They're funny. But number two, also, they just really do a great job of breaking down what things might cost if you're living in a particular area. I had no idea that this vlog would take off so quickly, but I'm not mad about it. It's taking off. It's getting subscribers a whole lot faster than my art channel, which I have revamped, so I understand why it's slow to recover. I would love to hear from you some more, and I can't wait to see what the next adventure brings. I hope you all have a great day. We'll see you soon. Bye.